Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Welcome to the Sportswoman Show. I'm your host, Gabby Hoffman. From gator hunting in the swamps of Florida to fly fishing in the cold water streams of the Mountain West, join us as we explore real human stories of women, from influencers to scientists to policymakers who are spending their lives in the outdoors. Let's begin. Mary, welcome to the Sportswoman Show. It's such a wonderful opportunity to have you on, a fellow Mid-Atlantic resident, bringing that perspective here, talking about boating and the related industry. Good to have you on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How did you get interested in boating? Where did it come from?
Well, I grew up on the Severn River, which is right outside of Annapolis, Maryland. And I grew up sailing and power boating, paddling anything we could find. I sailed a lot with my dad, did some competitive racing with him. And so much of my summer was spent on the water.
Excellent. And what vivid memories do you have of spending time with him on the water? Was it particularly about boating? Did you do fishing, observe wildlife? What exactly kind of cemented it for you?
Well, my family was definitely a sailing family. One of my biggest adventures with my dad was being flown to Bermuda so I could sail back with him aboard a boat that he had sailed over there. But I also spent a lot of time water skiing. And where I went to school, in high school, we did a lot of marsh mucking, like literally wearing old tennis shoes and going back into the marshes and camping and learning more about wildlife. So I've spent a lot of time getting very muddy and very dirty on the Chesapeake Bay.
I love the Chesapeake Bay. I don't get to go there nearly as enough since they put like creel limit and other kind of restrictions on the striped bass population. Justifiably so. I understand why they had to do it. It's just been harder for me to envision going out there, except for that's more so the middle and upper bay portion. But so I think still the lower Chesapeake, where the Chesapeake Bay meets the Atlantic and the Virginia side, I've had great success fishing for red drum, cobia. It's one of my favorite fisheries. I love the whole ecosystem as a whole. It's something we cherish and value here in the Mid-Atlantic. What is so unique to the Chesapeake Bay to you, having grown up on a tributary of it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You should talk about the limits on rockfish, striped bass. Lenny Rudow and I own FishTalk Magazine here on the Chesapeake Bay. And Lenny is super tuned in on that stuff. At our recent Annapolis Boat Show, we had representatives from the Maryland Department of Agriculture there to talk about eating blue catfish and the newly renamed Chesapeake chana, formerly known as snakehead, which are currently being called overabundant species, previously known as invasives. So, we face a lot of challenges there. The Chesapeake is a really delicate ecosystem. So as a little kid, we would see a lot of jellyfish and a lot of sunfish and a lot of perch. I was up the Severn River, didn't spend a lot of time catching rockfish. The bay was also not as clean then as it was now, which I know is an unusual thing to say, but in the 70s and 80s, we were not winning on the war on keeping the bay clean, and I think we've improved things there. So being a tidal yet somewhat contained body of water, the Chesapeake is a really interesting place to boat and to fish.
There are so many different species, and I know one tributary, I think of the Potomac, which is, a little bit away from the bay, but still almost interconnected. For those who are familiar, it still has some sort of proximity to it. I've heard that even bull sharks can come from the bay into the Potomac too, which is insane to think of. That's how, I guess, healthier the ecosystem is a lot more these days. Like, you get all these unique species. Dolphins are an indicator species, so you see them in the bay more. Lots of different species, even against kind of the backdrop of some species struggling, of course, like the aforementioned rockfish, striped bass.
Yeah, when we're seeing in the mid Chesapeake, we're seeing a lot more dolphin than we were seeing, 10, 15 years ago, which, is exciting and fun. I'm told there have been manatee sightings on the bay. I have not personally seen a manatee. And we definitely have that challenge with the blue catfish eating baby crabs and eating, baby perch. And so we're trying to fish our way out of that crisis.
Right. And I've even heard that, I think this is not necessarily in the bay. Actually, it was in a tributary of the bay somewhere in Maryland a couple of years ago. Do you remember the story of a tarpon being found in one of the Maryland rivers? That was so unique to me. Like, I know they migrate as far north as coastal Maryland, coastal Virginia in the summer months, but I remember even seeing a juvenile tarpon even found somewhere in Maryland off the Chesapeake Bay. That was incredible to me.
Yeah, it's always fun to find something you aren't expecting. I mean, in the early days of the snakehead, it was like, wow, I found a snakehead. Now it's like, oh, I found more snakehead.
Right. And when did they do the name change? This is the first time hearing of the snakehead name change.
Well, it's interesting, right? I do not know whether there's an official name change, but I do know that they were referring to it. The MDA was saying, yeah, it's Chesapeake Chana. And so we do have quite a few restaurants here in the Annapolis area that are serving blue catfish and Chesapeake Chana / snakehead. I think maybe snakehead might not be the most appealing name
Right.
of something somebody may want to eat. But, if you eat seafood and you like fish, those are two really good fish to eat these days.
They really are. And in several states in the mid-Atlantic, I know Virginia is starting to do this on the commercial side. I wonder if it's going to be seen more recreationally. But the kind of ways to harvest blue catfish, I think there are tournaments in both Maryland and Virginia now too, on a smaller scale basis, I think I've heard. But there's no really bounty contest in Virginia to my knowledge, but they encourage you to catch blue catfish. I know on the commercial side that some restaurants are partnering with anglers to capture them in mass, harvest them, fish them out in mass. And it is pretty good eating. I know some people are very avoidant or reluctant to eat catfish, but I'm unusual and I actually think it's a really good eating fish, even though the perception is they're bottom dwellers. But catfish blue cat especially, is supposed to be a really good delicacy.
It is. And the blue catfish actually eat throughout the water column. So they're not just bottom dwellers. So, not just bottom feeders. So I think that's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't know. And I mean, there's plenty of people who eat, I don't even know what you call the traditional catfish. But I think that there's a lot of misperceptions out there. And we need to get them straightened out so that we can, catch these fish and get them under control.
Speak more to your role with managing these magazines with Lenny. And I was telling you before we recorded, I've actually gone fishing with him. We did catch a few striper, catch and release striper, a few years ago, and it was a lot of fun getting to know him and seeing kind of his magazine work at play. And I know you partner with him actively. What led you to create or manage these publications with him, and what is it like being a woman overseeing, a fishing magazine or fishing and boating magazine like this?
Sure. So Lenny and I met years ago. I own also a sailing magazine called SpinSheet Magazine and a powerboat magazine called PropTalk Magazine, both of which I started with my good friend Dave Gendell. And when Lenny still does some writing for PropTalk Magazine. He does boat reviews and things like that. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking I'd like to start a fishing magazine." And I thought, oh dear, now he's going to go do a fishing magazine. He won't write for us anymore. And he said, and I know how to write and I know what everybody wants to read and I know how to fish. And the truth of the matter is, like, if Lenny isn't fishing, he's not breathing. So, and I thought, okay, here we go. And he said, so I'd like to team up with you and your team to make this magazine. So that was, I mean, I was thrilled. I went straight back to the office and said, hey, guys, guess what? Unless someone has a real, objection, we're starting a fishing magazine with Lenny Rudow. And it was 100%. Everybody was thrilled. So I don't do any writing, and Lenny does almost all the writing. We've got a great team of men and women in our office who are active boaters, sailors, anglers, and especially Zach Dittmars, who's he is our art director and production manager, and he also is an avid kayak fisherman. So the whole team works on the publications together. And you asked what it's like being a woman running these magazines. I have been the publisher of SpinSheet Magazine since 1995, then PropTalk Magazine, then FishTalk. And I also know that you're aware that I am the president of the Annapolis BoatShows. It's a little hard for me to comment on what it's like to do it as a woman because I've never done it as anything else.
Right.
However, it is, as you know, I'm in the minority there. I sit in a room full of people who run businesses, and almost all of them are men. My office actually is a little bit more women than men. That's just kind of luck of the draw. We have the right people in the right seats on this bus. But I do occasionally get some interesting comments, about, well, it's nice that they let you drive the boat. And I'm like, well, I own the boat, so that's how that works. But I love it. I love being on the water. I drive sailboats and powerboats. And I've never found that being female has hindered my ability to do it. But definitely every now and again, you get hit with a perception that maybe someone's a little surprised you're driving the boat.
Speak more to the Annapolis Boat Show, because that recently happened. I was sad I had to miss it. My schedule has just been super hectic. But what has been kind of the draw of the show? Because there are lots of boat shows people can attend. You can go to Florida, you can go to Massachusetts. But what do you find in particular makes the Annapolis Boat Show stand out and unique?
Well, I mean, of course, the Annapolis Boat Shows are the best, but they are in water. They're set right in downtown Annapolis. And I did not start the Annapolis Boat Shows. The first show was held in 1970. It was a sailboat show, followed by powerboat show in 1972. And they've run continuously since then with a small break for 2020. It's really cool to see downtown Annapolis transformed into everything boating. And it's a bunch of tents and a bunch of boats on land and in the water. This year at our powerboat show, we had over 400 powerboats on display. And we partner up with cool organizations like Boat US and the Boat US Foundation. And they offer some on-the-water training right there at the show. So somebody can learn how to dock. They can learn more about how to boat with their partner. We offer free seminars on the show grounds. One of the cool ones that we offered this year was, my partner loves to boat, but I don't. How do we figure this out? And then the following hour was, I love to boat, but my partner doesn't. How do we figure this out? And I love that stuff because it helps people become more comfortable enjoying the sport of boating.
Do you find any challenges to getting people to boat? I mean, especially in an inflationary time where a lot of people say, I want to learn how to boat, especially women, but they don't know if they can afford it. I know there's a lot of rental opportunities or freedom boat clubs, things of that sort. How does the boating industry, in your mind, kind of break through this challenge and get people to be exposed to boating? These seminars are great, but I know there's always kind of this prevailing overhanging of boats are expensive, very hard to maintain. People may not have the money to do it. Maybe they're not sure of rental options. Anyone exploring perhaps the first steps of boat ownership or learning how to operate a boat, what do you recommend to them?
Well, I think a boat show like the shows that we put on in Annapolis, and I'm certain other boat shows in other areas do similar things, but we do have clubs, as you've mentioned, boating clubs, boating timeshares, boat rentals, but also there are great Facebook groups and clubs of women about getting into boating. There's the one called Women Who Sail. There, excuse me. My editor of our Powerboat magazine is a woman, Kaylee Jasinski, and editor of our sailing magazine is Molly Winans. Both boat all the time, and they write about it. They are always happy to answer questions. And I think that's one of the things about a boat show is that not everybody there is selling boats. Lots of people are selling the boating lifestyle. So it's a great opportunity to walk the docks, talk to people about different kinds of boats, but also talk about ways to get into boating that are inexpensive or even free. On the sailing side, with our sailing magazine, SpinSheet, we host a crew finder service on our website and crew parties in the spring so people who have boats can meet people who want to go out sailing. And I think there are things like that on the power side and the fishing side. If you join an anglers club, you may find somebody to go out fishing with. You don't have to have a boat. Many people would like to have another person on board, and their bestie can't always make it out, so they got to have a bench there.
Indeed. I think, having some entry opportunities like that can really hook people into boating, and especially offering kind of like, a per diem basis or maybe encouraging them to take a boating safety course. Like that's usually a great first step. I have a friend who has a boat he has watercraft on the Potomac. And it's a really cool little, vessel that he has, and he can cruise, from Alexandria to Georgetown to Navy Yard and do this. And he had to learn about boating on his own. And it's been cool to at least, experience that, now have more friends to do that. But I think some people may not have friends who have boats. So I think that's why it's great to go to shows like yours to get that exposure if they've been curious or eager to learn how to boat or go on more boating experiences. Even beyond fishing trips, I think that's a good entry point there.
It is. And there's so many things. I mean, even right downtown DC and Baltimore and Annapolis, where you can even go take a water taxi ride.
Yes.
Or just a small cruise, just to figure out whether you like the feeling of being on a boat. I mean, I love boating. You love boating. It's not for every single person in the world, but going out in a safe situation to try it. And we love it that we offer that at our shows. And we have fall shows, but we also have spring shows. In the middle of April, we have a Bay Bridge boat show at Safe Harbor Narrows Point, which is right at Kent Narrows on the eastern shore of Maryland. And then an Annapolis Spring Sailboat show downtown at City Dock. And those shows are a little bit smaller with just the same number of educational opportunities and really the opportunity to get up and close and personal with people who love to boat and ask questions. Because, for example, I do really physical boating. I go stand up paddle boarding, and I like to go sail on race boats that require me to, be physically fit. There are some people who like to go for a casual creek cruise, go out and anchor and go fishing. There are so many different types of boating that I believe there's something for everybody.
There really is. It's so versatile as to what you can do on a boat. Long trip, a couple hours, waiting, or using it to go to like little different islands. I know right north of Georgetown, there's like an embankment where people get off, and it's like a cleaner stretch of water. It's really cool. So people can swim. I haven't yet taken the plunge to go into the DC area part of the Potomac. I'm still afraid. And I don't think I'll swim in the Potomac anytime soon, but it's really unique. Like even in DC, which is thought to believe, especially the Potomac, is thought to believe polluted or not clean. There are sections of the Potomac you'll learn through boating adventures that are clean, that you can disembark from a vessel and swim or lounge or do something cool or see people play with their dogs. So it really kind of opens the door to new adventures too, or if you're in brackish water or even on the coast. But for us who are here in the Mid-Atlantic, where it's a little more inland, kind of in closer proximity to us, if we don't directly feed into the bay or the Potomac River, plenty of opportunities. I think even, starting something as simple as like a kayak, which is not a boat, obviously, but something like that could kind of like build your interest into boating, I think, too.
Oh,
Any water sport.
absolutely. And kayaking is a ton of fun, and kayak fishing is a ton of fun. I mean, there are even organizations that'll do little kayak historical tours where you can get on board a kayak, paddle around, learn a little bit about it. Again, I love the idea of somebody just running out and buying a boat, but really trying it and getting your feet wet we have this first sail workshop that we do at our sailboat show in the fall and sailboat show in the spring where you can do an hour and a half of classroom time, just learning a little bit about what happens out there on a sailboat, and then an hour and a half sailing. So you can try it. And most people are going to say, wow, I love that. I want to do it again. Every once in a while, someone's going to go, not really for me. And isn't it good that they went and tried it? Whether it's first sail workshop, or as you said, a little kayak trip, water taxi, then just jump in and buy a boat and then go, oh, turns out I'm a power boater, not a sailor, or I should have bought a fishing boat. Like going out and seeing what's out there is first, it's fun. And second, as you said, you can find parts of the bay where there clean little swimming holes and things like that. Or there's people that get on boats and they never get their feet wet.
Indeed. Yeah, that's true. And for women listening who are interested in doing magazine writing, working in the boating industry, I bet some of the listeners are curious and they say, oh, wow, it's a lot easier to go boating, to do fishing, to explore how to navigate some sort of watercraft. What do you recommend them to do? Because some people may encounter barriers to entry. They don't know where to start in their search to work in the boating industry. What tips do you have for them? Because it's actually quite easy to navigate when you hear from experienced people like you. And I tell people who want to work in the outdoor industry, women in particular, that it's not as difficult to climb if you make the right connections. But what advice do you have? What worked for you in this journey that you've taken for operating magazines like this?
Yeah,
in the boat shows.
Yeah. So at the boat shows and at our 3 publications, we have very close relationships with the Marine Trades Association of Maryland and the Virginia Marine Trades Association. Both of those are really good about helping people get the training they need to work in the marine industry. And in Maryland, the Marine Trades Association has an EARN grant where they actually pay people to go do apprenticeships. And so that is a good place to start. Another good place is to go to boat shows or to reach out to people like me. I'm happy to hear from people who are interested in getting into the industry because we need all kinds of skills. Sure, we need people who can build boats and fix engines and who can, guide fishing tours, but we also need accountants and writers and editors and HR persons. We need all of that. So we don't take a whole lot of, doctors and lawyers working in the marine industry, although there are a few, but we do. All the rest of the jobs do exist in the marine industry.
There are a lot of subsidiary, indirect and direct jobs that are extremely important because you can have different skill sets. You don't have to be doing marketing or comms or directly operating machinery necessarily or building the watercraft. You can work in HR. You could do so many different skills and professions within this greater industry where you meet a lot of people. And I think this is the same for you, but in kind of my younger journey in the outdoor industry, I've met so many people who may not be boating or fishing aficionados, but they love it and support it, working in HR, office management, things of that sort, because they support the overall greater mission. So there are so many careers you can find under the umbrella of the boating fishing industry.
There are, and it's an exciting time in boating because, as we've discussed, fewer women work in the industry than men, and fewer women are sort of, pardon the pun, driving the boat out there on the water, but there's starting to be more. And I think part of it is just we have to model the behavior we want to see. So if we want to see more women boating, we have to show more women boating. And I think that is happening. We recently had a regatta of 19 sailboats with 8 to 10 women on each boat racing against each other. That's awesome. And it just is a lot of times more comfortable for women to get out on a boat with some more women. I'm equal opportunity. I'll go boating with anyone who's fun to be on a boat with.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think if you're a timid, if you didn't grow up boating, or if you're getting into it as an adult, the most important thing is never get on a boat with someone you don't feel comfortable with. And if you are out there with people that you know are competent, confident, and are fun to be around, you're going to have a great time out there. And if you're not sure if an organization looks like the right organization, or somebody looks like the right person to go on a boat with, it is a close-knit, tight-knit community, and you can call professionals in the industry and ask questions, or ask us, which questions should I ask? Somebody asked me to go for a boat ride. What should I ask them before I know whether I want to get on a boat with them? I mean, it's the same thing, right? You wouldn't get in a car with a total stranger unless you had some reason to feel that it was a safe situation. Same thing for boating. Just do a little legwork and you're going to have a great time out there.
Absolutely, you will. And there is no kind of ceiling you can hit with the potential to be involved in boating, recreational fishing, and all derivative activities under this greater marine industry umbrella. And it really is exciting. I wish I could have more time on the water. Like, my schedule is so busy, and I feel like I haven't gone that much on the water in recent years, but I'm going to change that. I'm hoping next year I could do that for myself, personally speaking, and do that and eventually get my boating safety certification. I think it's important to have that because I think people don't know to operate certain watercraft, you do have to have the license. So you don't want to be in trouble. Boat US is a great resource, and you can easily do the course, study, take it online, and get certified, no problem. I think even with jet skis, I think you have to have certification. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but typically you do have to have some sort of certification. And I think that's a good way for people to learn, especially women, to learn about boating and what it all entails. Mary, if there's anything we haven't covered yet in our discussion, what else would you like to add as we close out our conversation?
I think that's correct. If you were born, I believe, after 1972, you have to have a safe boating certificate. And I think it's a good thing for anybody to get, regardless of how old they are. The president and the general manager of the Annapolis Boat Shows are both women. And our publisher and three of our four editors at SpinSheet, PropTalk, and FishTalk are women. So if any women out there are interested in learning more about boating or getting into the marine industry, we're easy to find, and we'd love to meet people and get. I mean, I want everybody to go at least try boating, because it really, you do not have to be wealthy to go boating.
Exactly.
You have to be interested. Now, if you want to have a super yacht, you probably need to be really wealthy. But, you know, we're having as much fun on paddleboards and little runabouts catching fish and going out racing on small sailboats as the guys on the super yachts are.
Right. Yes, boating is a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. And it's not easy, or it's not difficult to traverse. It's actually a lot easier, as Mary states. And Mary, I hope at some point we can connect, since we're in the same area. Hopefully down the road when my schedule cools down a little bit and it seems to be taking shape in that form. I love Annapolis. It's so beautiful. And I really appreciate you coming to talk about this and giving kind of a local, regional perspective on the boating industry, because we've talked largely about hunting, fishing, shooting sports, but we're trying to wade more into boating. I appreciate your perspective and giving my listeners an introduction.
Well, we'll have to get you out on the water with us, and hopefully we'll get you to our spring shows.
Absolutely.
In April. They're the April 11th to 13th and April 25th to 27th. So maybe get us on your schedule now so we can get you out on the water.
Absolutely. I would love to do any demos, tests, and get to meet you all. And I mean, I know Lenny, but to meet you and make your acquaintance sometime then. So thank you, Mary, so much for the invaluable information. I hope it leads some of our listeners to check out boating and the fun dynamics that are entailed with that. And I hope we can revisit sometime in the future if you have a unique update.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Sportswoman Show. Your support is so crucial. Take a moment right now if you can and help us out by hitting the subscribe button on your podcatcher of choice, leaving a review, sharing with your friends, and engaging with us on social media. We also need guest ideas. If you have a suggestion on a strong outdoor woman we need to talk to, shoot our producer an email at cody@troutstreamstudios.com.